So this is the empirical formula of a hydrate lab, and our first step here is to select a crucible and a lid. And Jim, would you mind taking that off here, and we'll take a look at the inside of that crucible. Just show it to the camera. And you can see that the inside of the crucible is pretty clean here. Sometimes it's not clean. Sometimes it might have some sort of residue in it. It's okay if it has a little bit of residue if it's not completely clean. But if it's got a lot of visible ash and stuff, you are going to have to rinse it out with water and then dry it thoroughly before heating it. The first step though is we're going to actually put this onto the wire triangle here, and we're going to heat it and the lid. Now you'll notice when we set this up, we're going to try and arrange it so that the lid is somewhat ajar. Now we have to be a little bit careful here. If we end up breaking the lid, we just won't be able to substitute it with another lid because they all weigh a little bit different. And that's going to really ruin our experimental results. So we've got to try and be very careful here. And one technique that we can use to handle the lid is we can use one of these, and we grab it by the top, and you can see what Jim's doing here. He's grabbing it by the top. If ever you need to move the lid, that's the best way to handle it. So one thing I wouldn't do is I would never carry the crucible and the lid at the same time. I think that's going to lead to a lot of problems. Carry them separately and things will go a lot more easily for you. Before we start heating it, we should inspect the crucible, make sure there's no cracks in it. If there are any cracks, they're just going to get worse as we proceed with the experiment. So make sure that you have a crucible that does not have any cracks in it. Jim's going to go ahead and start the gas. So he's going to light the burner here. There we go. And what we're going to do is we're going to heat that for about, 5 to 10 minutes?
5 minutes or so.
Yeah, 5 minutes or so. So as you can see here, the flame is about 4 to 5 inches below the crucible, and that's going to be the way it will be for the next 5 minutes. So we've been heating this for 5 minutes now, and now we're going to go ahead and take it off. Now the best technique here, go ahead and take the lid off first and put it onto that wire mat there, please, Jim. There we go. And then what you can do is you can take off the entire triangle there just by grabbing it on the side and lifting off the entire assembly. There we go. And then put that on there like that. I think that's probably one of the safest ways of doing it. And then we can take the crucible and the lid separately over to the balance. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's take the crucible first. Now you'll notice how Jim's going to pick up the crucible. He's sort of cradling it in these tongs here. That's probably the best way, but you still have to be a bit careful with it. Could you bring it a bit closer to the camera so they can see how to carry it? Yeah. Notice how the spikes are pointing upwards as well. And he's going to take that over and put it next to the balance. I think we're using the top loading balance, Jim.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And now he's going to go and come back and get the lid. Notice he didn't carry the lid on top, and look how he's carrying the lid by this top part of the lid. Alright, so now he's going to, once it's cooled down of course, because we do have to wait for it to cool. And by cool, what I mean is that you probably won't be able to put your finger about, say, a centimetre away from it and not feel any heat. So as long as you've got that going, then you're good to go with the weighing. So go ahead and weigh it, Jim. Now remember, the lid doesn't actually have to be on top of the crucible, so you can just go ahead and put the lid on the side. Probably a little bit safer. There we go. And then we would weigh both the crucible and lid, and obviously you would write that down in your lab book. So we've got our hydrate sample here. You'll notice it has a label on it. This one has A on it. It might have some sort of other letter. You should write that letter down in your lab book. What we're going to do is we're going to put a weighing boat here on the balance, and then we'll tare it. Now what we're trying to do here is just get really an estimate. We need about 2 to 3 grams of the hydrate. So we're going to take that weighing boat off, because we never put stuff on while it's on the balance. Go ahead and we'll just put a bit on there for now. Get an idea of.
And I noticed this hydrate is quite compact.
Right.
In the test tube.
Right. So you might have to push it down a little bit with the spatula to kind of break it up. Yeah, sometimes these hydrates are like that.
Well, they do absorb moisture, and I suspect that's the cause of this.
It's about how much is that, Jim?
That's 0.3 grams.
Okay, so that's 0.3 grams. He knows he's going to need about 8 times as much of what he's got already in there. So you'll notice he's not weighing it out while it's on the balance. Now the reason we do that is so that we can protect the balance. I tell you what, I'm always walking around making sure that people aren't weighing stuff out while it's on the balance. Always having it separate. Now you just put a bit on there, eyeball it, figure out how much more you need. Remember, we just need between 2 and 3 grams, so we know about how much now we're going to have to put on there. Let's take another look, Jim, and see where we're at.
And if you notice, the test tube has got lots of sample on it. If this was over the balance, at this point it'd be spilling in.
Yeah, that's true. How much we got now?
About 1.5.
1.5. All right, so it's going to add a bit more to that. Now, interestingly, we're not really interested in getting an exact mass here, because the exact mass we'll get once we've added it to the crucible. That's about
2 grams.
2 grams. That's excellent. So that's good. So we're going to take that over to the crucible now and add it to the crucible. So I've got our sample. It's about 2 grams. We're going to go ahead and put that into the crucible. And we don't have to be entirely careful about getting every last bit off that weighing boat. And that's because we are going to re-weigh this in the crucible with the lid. So just try and get as much as you can, but you don't have to get every last bit off there, because this is not supposed to be a quantitative situation right now. It will be once we re-weigh the crucible. Now the crucible is pretty cool at this point, so Jim is just going to be able to carry it with his hands along with the lid. But again, he's not going to put the lid on top of it and carry it with the lid on top.
And again, I'm not doing this over the balance because I can see powder spilling off to the sides.
Right, so he's doing this all separately away from the balance, which is fantastic.
I'm also going to double check there's no powder on the side of the crucible, which could fall into the balance.
Let's put it in. There we go.
Yeah.
So there's nothing there. That's good. All right, excellent. All right, so we're going to take this over to the balance now. And Jim, go ahead and put a 0 it. All right, now let's put the crucible and the lid. And now we've got the crucible, the lid, and the hydrate on that balance, and we'll be able to get the mass of the hydrate pretty easily now. We just need to take this mass, which is the mass of the crucible, lid, and hydrate, and subtract out the crucible and the lid. So we've got our crucible and hydrate, and we're going to go ahead and put that onto the wire triangle. It's probably cool at this point. We can probably lift it with your hands at this point, right?
It's cool enough.
Yeah. If it wasn't, then you could use the tongs, but we're okay here. So we're going to set this up the same way as we had it before, and we're just going to put that lid sort of ajar on top, and you'll notice how we handle it all separately here. We never try and put everything on the assemblage at the same time. Alright, go ahead and let's heat this. I think it says in the lab manual to heat this for about 8 to 10 minutes. Go ahead and... So you're going to heat this for about 8 to 10 minutes, and then what we're going to do is we're going to weigh it again.
And you may notice while it's heating, you might hear some popping sounds.
Yeah, that's the water being evaporated. And this is why it's important that the lid be ajar here, so that the evaporated water can actually leave. And you might even be able to hear a little bit of action already. You might not hear it on the camera.
Yes, it's definitely starting to pop.
Yeah, so sometimes it pops. That's why it's important we have the lid on, at least partially, so that we don't lose a bunch of our material when it's heated. I think, you know, it's good that we use a fairly gentle heat at this point, and I think that's what we've pretty much got, don't we, Jim?
Yeah, in the event that it is too vigorous, you can always adjust the valve.
Yeah, go ahead and turn it down a bit. No, not that part, that part. And make it a cooler flame if you feel like you have to take it down. There we go. So if you take it clockwise, it'll cool the flame. There we go.
So if you see yellow, you know you've
got a cooler flame here. Yeah. So that, you know, that's just in case you feel like it's too vigorous, and then you put that on there for about 8 to 10 minutes, and then it will be ready to remove the heat, and then we can let it cool for a little bit, and then put it on the balance and weigh it again. So it's been heating for about 8 to 10 minutes now. The other thing I had wanted to mention was that if you felt like it was the flame was too hot on it, you can always move the whole assembly up by moving the clamp. Go ahead and just touch the clamp. There we go.
But if you do this, just verify that the metal has not gotten so hot that you can burn yourself.
Yeah, the other thing is that you probably want to take the lid off.
Yes.
The lid off that assembly, and then put it onto the side and then move it up, rather than move it there with the lid. The lid will fall off and it will break. I can guarantee it. All right. I think we'll go ahead and turn that off now, please, Jim. So once it's been heating for 8 to 10 minutes, we're going to let it cool now. And then once it's cool enough so that we can hold a finger about 1 centimeter away from it and without feeling any heat, usually an ungloved finger, then we can go ahead and start weighing it. So it looks like it's probably cool enough now to weigh. So let's go ahead and take off the lid first. And you remember the technique I showed you earlier, where you take the wire triangle and the crucible off at the same time. You might prefer just to grab the crucible, and that's okay. Okay, now we can go ahead and we can take that over to the balance to weigh. So just like we did before, we took the crucible and the lid separately over to the balance rather than leaving the lid on top. So we're going to go ahead now and do our first weighing. Now the mass of the crucible, and we're going to put the lid on there as well. And remember, we don't have to put the lid on top of the crucible, we can just leave it off to the side, that's fine. Now this mass that we're recording now should be less than the mass of the crucible, lid and hydrate that we got just a few minutes ago. The reason for that is because now there's less mass because of the water. The water's been evaporated. So we take that mass and we record it, and now we're going to reheat it. Now the idea is that we want to see if the difference between the first and second heating is less than 0.05 grams. That means that we have got as much water as we possibly can off this. So we're going to take this crucible and lid back to the setup, and then we're going to reheat it. So now we're going to heat this a second time. Make sure we've got all this water out of it. And it's just going to be set up in pretty much the same way. And we're going to put that lid ajar on there like that, and then we're going to go ahead and restart it. Let's turn that flame down a little bit too, Jim. I mean the actual intensity of it. So there's a little thing at the bottom there that you can use to calm the flame down a bit so it doesn't go up so high. There we go. Yeah, I think I'd prefer that. I think that looks all right.
Yeah,
let's do that.
You want more of a...
yeah, that's good. I like that. Yeah, it's perfect.
If the wind or current's blowing it actually off the crucible.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we might have to have it a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need more of a defined cone like that.
Okay, fair enough. We'll do that.
How about that?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
Yeah, it's important that the flame not be leaving the crucible the way it was just before. Alright, so now we're going to do that for about 8 to 10 minutes, and then we're going to reweigh it again. and hopefully we're going to have a mass difference of less than 0.05 grams. If the mass difference is still more than 0.05 grams, you're going to have to repeat this process until such time as you do have a mass difference of less than 0.05 grams between one heating and the next heating. So we've been heating this for another 8 to 10 minutes, and we're going to go ahead and take that off the... and we've let it cool for a little while, and we're going to go ahead and take it off. That's right. Take the lid off first, and then take the crucible off. And we're going to let it sit and cool, and then we're going to take it over to the balance. So we've, this is the second heating, and we've taken the crucible and the lid over to the balance separately, and we're going to reweigh them. So you just zeroed it, and we're going to put the crucible and the lid on the balance again. And again, what we're looking for is a difference of less than 0.05 grams between this heating and the previous one. If it's more, you're going to have to repeat the process and heat it again. But generally speaking, most of the time, only 2 heatings should be necessary. And as long as it's less than 0.05 grams difference, then you've got pretty much all the water off that you're going to get.